We're a couple days removed from the 2023 NBA draft that was headlined by Victor Wembanyama being selected number 1 by the San Antonio Spurs. Those couple days gave me a little bit of time to contemplate a potentially alarming trend. Now, the thumbnail and title of this video are a tad bit clickbaity, not gonna lie. Victor is definitely a top 5 NBA prospect of all time, and I think he will be transcendent. I saw recently someone gauged his ceiling as KD offensively and KG defensively, and his floor as a taller AD. Let me reiterate, his floor is a taller AD. In other words, a reputable scout thinks that the absolute worst that Wembanyama can be is the 4 inches taller version of an All-NBA talent, one of the most skilled bigs we've ever seen, someone on the short list of those that can both protect the rim with the best of them and adequately switch on guards without it being viewed as a mismatch, and someone who's proven capable as the 1B on a championship team. That's the absolute worst that Wemby can be, and that's insane. LeBron was correct in describing Wembanyama not as a unicorn, but as an alien. We've never seen someone quite like Wemby. People will say, oh yeah, we've seen this type before. Kristaps Porzingis, a 7-footer that is perimeter oriented, can shoot like a 2-guard, and still protect the rim like a typical 5. Similar, yes, but KP doesn't possess Wemby's handle, nor do I think he was projected to be as elite defensively as Wemby is projected to be. I also don't think KP was taking one-footed step-back threes in the middle of a competitive professional game. So yeah, I don't think it's outlandish to say that Wemby is the most unique prospect we've ever seen, and that he has the potential of a truly generational talent. A descriptor that does get thrown around way too much, though one that I think truly fits Wembanyama. I am buying into the Wemby hype. I want to preface this vid in saying that because the remainder of this video may be misinterpreted by some people as me projecting Wemby's downfall, when that simply is not the case. I only seek to highlight an interesting, yet possibly alarming trend that might not be at the forefront of most people's minds. A trend that might worry some Spurs fans if they're superstitious. That trend is the consistent disappointment of the careers of many number 1 picks in recent memory. Now, a few parameters with this topic. I'm excluding 3 number 1 picks, the 3 from 2020 to 2022, because their careers have only just begun. Those players are Anthony Edwards, Cade Cunningham, and Paolo Banchero. All of these guys are still on their rookie contracts, so it doesn't make sense to include them, and these 3 have looked pretty damn good thus far, but that's besides the point. I'll be focused on the number 1 picks in the span of 2013 to 2019. A 6-year span encompassing 7 NBA drafts, and the 7 number 1 picks: Anthony Bennett, Andrew Wiggins, Karl Anthony Towns, Ben Simmons, Markelle Fultz, DeAndre Ayton, and Zion Williamson. This 6-year span could possibly be one of the more underwhelming ones regarding number 1 picks in NBA history. Now, I haven't done much research on that statement, but it does pose an interesting talking point. Okay, sidebar, I just did some research on that statement. And the 6-year span of 7 number 1 picks from 2004 to 2010 is a little rough. Dwight in 04 was a great number 1 pick, but Andrew Bogut, Andrea Bargnani, and Greg Oden follow him in 05, 06, and 07. Derrick Rose in 08, one of the most tragic NBA careers ever, and then Blake Griffin and John Wall in 09 and 2010. 2 number 1 picks who one could say have had somewhat underwhelming careers compared to their beginnings. So yeah, that 7-year stretch is probably more underwhelming than this most recent one, though I still think the topic is a valid one. So I'm still making this video. Now, more often than not, when a team wins the lottery, they're a bottom 5 team in the league. They're a team that has missed the playoffs for a couple years in a row, a team that has no culture, a team that's missing a leader, a team that's missing someone that can be a building block, that can attract marquee players in free agency, that can attract fans to fill the seats of the arena. They're missing someone that can single-handedly win them games when the supporting cast is simply having an off night. They're missing that guy, and when you land the number 1 pick, you're hoping to find the solutions to all those problems. I put together a list of things that you would like your number 1 pick to accomplish within their first 5 or so seasons. I think there are reasonable expectations for somebody that you draft at number 1. Obviously, there are external factors that may restrict the player from accomplishing all of these expectations, like health, team performance, and front office capability. That's why I listed 7 different expectations. Some are impacted by external factors, but many are mainly impacted by the player's ability. And like I stated, if a player is drafted number 1, you're hoping he can be the face of your franchise, someone that can elevate the team as a whole, put it on his back, and lead it to success. With that being said, I think these are reasonable expectations. So here's the checklist. I think from beginning to end, these expectations get slightly more challenging and exclusive. Also, another disclaimer, these expectations are only applicable for the player on the team that drafted them. For example, I wouldn't be able to evaluate Philadelphia's selection of Markelle Fultz based off his display in Orlando. I think that's self-explanatory though. Anyway, starting with the first criteria. All rookie first team. Yes, rookies develop at different rates, but I think a team would view this selection as a promising indicator for the player's future. Of the number 1 picks in the 2013 to 2019 time span, 5 of the 7 made the all rookie first team. The only ones who missed it were Anthony Bennett and Markelle Fultz. Okay, not bad so far. Rookie of the year. If you're drafting at number 1, you're hoping to have selected the best rookie in the class, and you're hoping that they showcase that in their first season. 3 of the 7 number 1 picks won the Rookie of the Year, and they all were selected consecutively. Wiggins winning in 2015, Cat in 2016, and Ben winning in 2018 because he missed his first season in the NBA due to injury. Not a bad mark here either. Often there's like 3 to 5 rookies that showcase valid Rookie of the Year campaigns. All-Star. The first notable non-rookie accolade for a number 1 pick to receive in their path to becoming a franchise-altering talent. 3 of the 7 made the All-Star team. Cat, Simmons, and Zion. Wiggins doesn't count here because his selection came when he was on Golden State, not while he was on Minnesota, the team that drafted him. All-NBA. Similar reasoning to All-Star, but just to a higher degree. Only 2 of the 7 have made an All-NBA team, Ben Simmons and Karl Anthony Towns. Team's best player for 3+ years. This is where things get a tad alarming. You can't be viewed as a franchise player if you're not even the best player on your team for a significant stretch. Surprisingly, only 1 of the 7 number 1 picks here meet this criteria, and it's Cat. He's been Minnesota's best player from his rookie season to Anthony Edwards' 3rd season, which was this past year. Bennett obviously was never viewed this way. Wiggins lost this standing once Cat arrived. Ben, maybe you could argue due to his all-around contribution in his early Philly days, but I think Joel always was Philly's best player, in my opinion. Fultz, never that. Ayton only had 2 seasons as just the 2nd best player until CP3 arrived in Phoenix, and you can't say Zion has been better for New Orleans than Ingram because BI has actually been available for New Orleans when they were both on the team. Next, we have led a team's playoff return. When you draft at number 1, you're hoping that player can end what's been years and years of drudgery and irrelevance. And that's done by leading that team to the playoffs after they've been absent from it for so long. Only 1 player has definitely done this, and that's Cat again. As good as Ant was in his 2nd season, and as memorable as Pat Beverly was in the play-in tournament, Cat was tremendous. And he was the best player on that team that infamously made it out of the play-in tournament in 2022. And you could count the Wolves' 2017 playoff berth, but I think Jimmy Butler was the leader of that team. You can maybe argue Ben Simmons in 2018 when the 76ers made it. Ben was really good in his rookie season, but I still think that team was led by Joel. Lastly, we have led a team to a playoff series win. More than half of the league makes the playoffs, literally. So a playoff appearance isn't that impressive. I think true relevance in the league and respect throughout the league as a team comes when you can progress a little bit in the postseason by getting at least 1 series win. And of course, you're hoping your number 1 pick can lead that campaign within his first 5 or 6 years. Only 1 player has done that, and it's not who you're expecting. That 1 player is Ben Simmons. In 2018, Joel was pretty bad against Miami, averaging 18.7 points per game on 42% from the field. Rookie Ben Simmons was actually the best player on the floor for Philly, damn near averaging 18 points per game, actually damn near averaging an 18-point triple-double. Other than that, no number one pick from the drafts of 2013 to 2019 has led their team out the first round. After 2018, Joel has been the leader of Philly in the playoffs during Ben's tenure. Wiggins' first playoff series win came as the second best player behind Curry in Golden State. Cat has never won a playoff series, and no other number one pick in this time span has ever made the playoffs. I don't think any of these criteria are asking or expecting too much from a number one pick. I didn't list anything too crazy like win an NBA championship, be a multi-time All-Star or All-NBA member, lead the league in scoring X amount of years, etc. I think all of the 7 criteria are reasonable to expect your number one pick to hit within their first 5 or 6 years on your team. I think if he can hit most of these expectations, you can look back 5 to 6 years from the selection of the player at number 1 and say, okay, I'm content with our selection of this player, and I'm content with his individual production and the amount of team success that has ensued. Only 2 of these number 1 picks have hit more than half of the criteria. Karl Anthony Towns at a good mark of 6 for 7, and Ben Simmons hitting 5 of the 7 of the expectations. No other number 1 pick has exceeded that underwhelming mark of hitting 2 of 7 of the criteria. These are the number 1 picks of 2013 to 2019. I picked this time frame because they've all had an adequate amount of time to showcase the ceiling that they're likely to hit and sustain for the upcoming or current primes of their careers. So, those were my findings. What does it have to do with Wemby? Not much, really. Just that he's joining the long list of number 1 picks that have been tasked with the monumental responsibility of changing the course of a dreadful NBA team. Does this trend suggest anything regarding Wemby's odds of success? No, not at all. This trend has less to do with Wemby specifically and more to do with our viewpoint of number 1 picks in general. I think being the number 1 pick has a bit too much weight. Most players that are viewed as generational talents or develop into MVP caliber players were not drafted number 1. Some of them weren't even drafted in the lottery, and one of them was drafted in the 2nd round during a Taco Bell commercial. Having success has less to do with the position of your draft selection and more to do with the player's work ethic and the front office and coaching staff of the team he joins. In baseball, it's not common for the number 1 pick to be even an all-star caliber player, hence why number 1 picks in the MLB don't get too much hype coming into the league, especially compared to those in the NBA. And I think it'd be best for us NBA fans to adopt a percentage of the manner MLB fans have regarding high draft picks. Sure, these players are selected highly because a lot of people believe they possess the ceiling of a superstar. But at that point, that's all it is, belief. I think if NBA fans tapered their expectations a tad bit, slowed their roll of premature proclamations of player X being the next this and the soon to be that, and cease their equations of number 1 draft pick with guaranteed superstardom, we wouldn't feel so disappointed after looking back on the careers of some number 1 picks that didn't have an output in the NBA that matched their hype coming in. It's an unrewarding tendency to build young, exciting prospects up just to tear them down and berate them with negativity and destructive labels like wasted talent, biggest letdown, and the most infamous label in NBA talking circles of all, bust. I truly think Wemby has the tools to be something we haven't seen before, but I fear that with him coming into the league with so much hype, if his career pans out as anything less than a top 15 player of all time, the overwhelming consensus of him will be that he fell short of expectations, which is just unfair on so many levels. Though I do know that not too long ago, there was a prospect that came into the league with expectations that should never be assigned to a kid straight out of high school. If his career ended with his name not being mentioned in the GOAT debate, his whole body of work would be viewed as a shortcoming. Unbelievable, but true. Though, look how his career has turned out. Yeah, he's one of the most scrutinized athletes of all time, but he's also one of the greatest athletes of all time. Regardless of your personal feelings about him, whether you think his success has been carried by his raw athletic gifts and not skill, or that he ruined the competitive balance and integrity of the league, if you don't like his hairline or his tendency to cap, if you don't like him because he single-handedly dismantled your favorite team countless times, or if you don't like him because he's just so damn elite, his legacy is sealed and his greatness isn't up for debate. So yeah, LeBron James came into the league with expectations that you'd think were simply too high to place on any prospect. And look how his career turned out. And you know what they say, history tends to repeat itself.